What's up, everybody? Back again with another Digital Artcast. Thank you for tuning in. It is always a pleasure to be here and bring you guys some awesome artists, some awesome talks, and some awesome information of the world of entertainment art. Again, back with a regularity of episodes. Hopefully this one is landing again within a month of the last one, or 4 weeks. Again, these should be coming thick and fast, and hoping that you're learning a lot from them, depending on the setup and the initial layout of how I'm structuring these episodes. If you guys always have any improvements or comments or people you want me to talk to particularly, remember you can just leave some information in the comments, and you can inform and educate me to what you want to hear more of. My guest today is someone I met not even a year ago. I think it was at THU when would that be now? September. I think September last year. And we've kind of been on and off chatting about getting him on the podcast, and he is here today. So I'm going to attempt to say his name correctly. Today we have Filipe Teixeira.
Okay, nice.
Did I get that right? Okay. See? All that practice leading up to it, and I finally got it right.
It's good, man. It's good. You did it perfectly. It's fine.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Cool. Thank you for coming on and speaking to me. It's awesome that you are here. Yeah, of course. We bumped into each other last year at THU. Yep. You were, of course, the yellow senpai. Running about in your costume. That's a whole other story, but which ended in such an awesome way. With your ticket pretty much paid for this year's THU, which must have been a huge relief because of obviously your circumstances changing recently.
Yeah,
so
indeed, yeah. It was unexpected. It was deeply appreciated, but it was I would have done it anyway even if they were not giving it as a prize on the end. But
well, you didn't know you were going to anyway, so there wasn't really any motivation because you had no idea Andre was going to just straight up be like, "Oh yeah, you're getting a ticket for next year." So
it's true. Yeah, and but it was so damn fun, you know. I ended up going to the apartment every single night, full of bruises, sweaty as hell, and that suit stinks. But it was so damn funny.
Yeah, no, I think I love the fact that Shuvo, even though he is this like big time CEO, run this company for 30 years, is still able to get down and dirty with the rest of the artists there and have a good time and kind of make fun of themselves. So
yeah, I was actually this was my third THU, right?
Okay, yeah.
So, but this was the first time I actually interacted with Shuzo. So I'd seen him on stage doing the karaoke thing of the previous years, and I already noticed he was pretty much not the typical CEO like you just mentioned.
Yeah.
But when I had this opportunity to interact with him, it was so cool to see. It was pretty much really down to earth, and just. He said, "Look, the first rule he said was this is for fun, okay? You guys just have to be the silliest possible and be improvise as much as you can, because we actually didn't rehearse any of it, okay? We had like the THU thing where we did the Sentai pose, and he would be the T, the other two guys would be the H, and me and the other guy would be the U. So, and we just came up with that thing in like 5 minutes, having a few glasses of wine. That's it. Everything else was just improv. Okay, but it was so fun, and it helped because Shuzo has a really good taste for homemade stuff. So that's a whole nother story with my bootleg process of bringing friends to THU and getting friends on THU. So
it's awesome, man. I mean, Shuzo definitely was. I had that moment where I had seen him about because it's the same thing when you go to these networking events. Like you could be sitting next to somebody you know nothing about them, but they could be like this, because obviously Shuzo is like this huge guy who's built this whole industry in Japan and has this massive, Polygon Pictures is such a huge thing, and it's been going for so long. And
Yeah.
he was literally just, I think it was actually one of the last nights, maybe the second last night, before one of the jam sessions on stage. When I was up playing drums and stuff, and he was sitting at one of the pallets, and he was kind of sitting with his legs crossed on the floor, eating food from the food truck thing.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting next to him, and I got talking to him. I says, "Oh yeah, and what's your name?" And, "Oh, Shuzo, nice to meet you." And I was saying to him, I says, "Oh, you located in the States, or where are you working just now?" He's like, "Oh no, man, I've got a studio in Japan." And I was like, "All right, cool." And then as soon as you said Polygon Pictures, I was like, "Oh shit, like I know of you guys. You like worked on Nights of Sidonia." And he's like, "Oh yeah, but we've been working on loads of other stuff." And I was like, "Oh my god." And but then I knew nothing really about, Shizo, but he was just so humble to say, and he's sitting with me and talk with me for like half an hour before we jammed, and
Yeah.
talk about his life, and it was really awesome.
Yeah,
So,
and that's one of the things. It's actually one of the things I really enjoy at THU, for example, because you and Shuzo was the biggest example I had there, which is you have to talk because at the end of the day we're all just people, right?
yeah,
No matter your level of experience, your amount of know-how, or what you accomplished on life, it's just people. So, and he's just there, It's like um, he's enjoying just, okay, I was able to accomplish this, and now I'm just reaping the fruits of it on a good way. But he also um, gives some of it back. He's pretty okay with giving you feedback. He's pretty okay with just talking about and sharing experience. I actually had I had an experience with him when we're just talking about our backgrounds and stuff. We're doing in the dressing room, just changing for our clothes. And I told him that I think it was the Gonzalo that asked him that you're not the typical CEO, right? And he was telling, yeah, it's sometimes investors find it a bit weird, but um, but he told me that he likes to do things on a pretty carefree mode, because you don't believe that life has to be taken on strain. And I told him that when I was at college, I did this thesis, that the translation was the title translation was playing is not a lack of seriousness. So, and we just we're talking about it a bit because he, like I do, believes that if you're playing uh, or having fun with a concept, it helps you to get better ideas and better solutions than to try to approach it on a more sober perspective, because you're let's not use this, or let's not use that. And we I I'm trying to get the good word, the adequate word.
yeah,
Yeah, we were shuffling around a few stories. I told him that at the time when I did this thesis, um, some of the, and not only them, but it's still continued today. But usually, that when you're getting in that brainstorm period, the blue sky phase, you uh, company, the professionals for an art team or marketing team or whatever, they would just seal themselves shut in a room that had all the walls just lined up with paper. Okay, and then you're just scratching stuff and drawing stuff, just the most humongous ideas, the most uh, out there ideas. And at one point, they stop and say, okay, what did we come up with? And then, and basically they did just what made them laugh and made them feel. Um, Obviously, not everything is usable because it's some things are just way too much way out there, but you always end up with really good results. And his career, I think it's a perfect example of how you can get successful just thinking a bit out of the box, reinterpret.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I would agree. I think that the more you can play with your work, especially when it comes to something that's so creative, if you treat it too much like a business, then
Yeah.
you lose that creative flair. And I've always said that when art meets industry, when you talk about art industry, the two almost, cancel each other out, because the creative flair only really comes from playing imagination sometimes, and when you introduce the element of deadlines and budgets and
Oh,
CEOs
yeah, yeah.
and
But
uh,
those things actually have their own place, right? It's important. If you have a business, you have to, you have overheads, and you have investors, and you have all those things that need to be taken care of to, guarantee you're going to go forward with your life. But at the same time, uh, you can't really take life too seriously, because at the end of the day, if you're going to do that, you're just going to do a rehash. You're going
yeah,
to rehash everything. It's just, oh, but just put different texture on it, change it to color green, and that, let's call it a day. So
yeah,
it's a problem. Um, and for example, I had really good teachers at school from a really young age that
mm,
always taught me that if you can't make fun about something, then you can't tell a good story, because you can't.
yeah,
You're just being, oh no, it's said like this, and we're gonna play it like this because it's the safe way to go.
yeah,
But safety can get you killed. Probably
yeah. It's
than
too
risks. Yeah.
it's too by the numbers. Like if you
Yeah.
play it too close to your chest, then yeah, you can find that things get too overwhelmed, and then it ends up a mess because of that, and then you can't kind of go back and repair it. And I think one of the best examples I've seen of this was when I watched was probably one of the original inspirations for me, was watching the Double Fine adventure, which was the guys at Double Fine Studios making the point and click adventure they made, Broken Age,
Ah, yeah,
when
yeah.
they done the Kickstarter, and
Mhm.
they had episodes where it was what they called the Art Jam, where Scott Campbell and a couple of different guys like Doug Chang came across and done, or no, Peter Chan, sorry, done a whole day of just basically drawing and painting and putting things on the wall, and there was no like expectation. Like they had a general guideline, but there was no set rules of it has to be this tall or wide, and they were just coming up with the wildest ideas, like people who flew on combs and were combing the land like the grass was like hair, and people walking in the clouds, and these massive monsters that couldn't exist but were so cool to look at. And yeah, like I think that's a better approach almost to making really awesome concept art, than like you said, playing it by the numbers, and has to look like this, or he has to have two arms only, and one spinal cord and all this kind of shit. So
Here's the thing. At one point, you have to come to terms with the basic concept that it's really hard to somebody to create something really new, because the way creativity and knowledge work is you build it up from something that you've seen before and experienced before, right? But at the same time, uh, if you probably can't really create anything new, you're basically telling the same stories over and over,
yeah,
but you can mess around a bit with it. So the more you play less by the book, the
mm-hmm.
more likely you can create something that somebody can pinpoint as, oh, this is from these guys.
Yeah,
It's something like, well, everybody, there's like a buttload of RPGs out there, right?
yeah, of
Story-based
course,
games. But Bethesda created some of the most memorable RPGs from our time period, right?
yeah,
And they did it extraordinarily. They did it not only in futuristic styles. They did it on historically like medievally medievally.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
more medieval like.
From Skyrim to Fallout, there was
Yeah,
a
exactly,
whole genre
exactly,
change. Yeah, yeah,
exactly. So, but they made it their thing.
yeah.
Um, so,
They
and
had a style of building worlds that was very unique to Bethesda, to their take on like open worlds and lands you can explore, and how to make them interesting, and while still having fun, while still not making it too rigid or too by the numbers.
yeah, exactly,
Um, yeah.
exactly.
So then, was that something you applied when? Because you've worked. I mean, just before, because you recently went freelance, or well, you're kind of by contract, but you were with Miniclip for like
Yeah,
for what?
I was there for 7 years and 7 months.
Okay.
I was mostly doing. well, Mint is a mobile game company.
Yeah.
I was mostly assigned to their number one game, which is 8 ball pool.
Yeah.
So I was in charge of doing practically, uh, all the pool tables and all the pool cues, which were basically where people actually spent their money on.
Okay.
So I was in charge of doing that. I did pretty much over, I don't know, 500 or 600 cues.
Wow.
Uh, so I have some experience in reinventing the wheel. So,
Yeah.
and before that, I actually ended up working full time for two other game companies. They were Portuguese
Okay.
game companies
Okay.
for 3 years each, I think. And then I did
Mhm.
some freelancing for indie studios and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah, so
yeah, and then so how did Miniclip come about then? Because they're probably for when maybe that part of Portugal, but they're probably one of the bigger studios for the kind of the stories they tell or the games they have. They have quite a bigger presence, or are they kind of just seen as a smaller studio in Portugal, or are they?
in Portugal, well, they're big. They're basically the biggest game company in Portugal. Um,
Okay.
so they're multinational. We also
Right.
have here Marmalade Studios. So they are
Okay. Yeah.
mobile, but they're smaller sized.
Yeah.
With Portugal, I think we have at the moment like 200 people. I think.
Right.
When I joined the studio, there were like 20 people working there, and then it
Okay.
grew to like it exploded for 200 or so in the past seven
Wow.
years. It was just huge. It was really
Eh,
huge. And
200 people for a studio is still like I would say massive. It's quite a big studio.
yeah, yeah, in Portuguese standards, definitely. Yeah, in
Hmm.
Portuguese standards.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was at Axis doing my time there, like they were just expanding and moving to a new office, but I'm sure they were close to 200 for a cinematic studio again. But yeah, I'd say that's still a bigger studio. I mean, no compared to maybe something like Ubisoft or the
Yeah,
bigger
definitely.
guys who have like hundreds and hundreds of people working for them. But then of course they're working across multiple titles. If you're just having maybe 200 people in one game, it's a bigger thing. So because Miniclip to me, when I say that name, I think the one game I had played was the Jetpack Joyride. Is that not one of their
Oh no, it's not.
IPs?
It's not. It's not one of ours. It's
Right. Okay.
it's fine. It's perfect. It's okay.
Yeah.
No, but I don't think we ever had any partnership with them. I think we at one point probably we had those cross promotion games.
Right. Okay.
There was this. Yeah, I think we had one. Where they promote something in our games,
Okay.
and then we promote something of our games in their game.
All right. I'm looking them up now. It was Half Brick Studio.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember even where Miniclip would have came in, but I'm sure I have at one point experienced because I know this. I knew the studio. Like when I looked at that, I wasn't like, who the fuck are Miniclip? I was like, oh, I've heard of them. I know who that studio is. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
honestly, it started in 2010 because the mobile division was created and funded here in Portugal.
Right.
Um, so we started doing some of the adaptations of a few games that were already successful on the website,
Right.
and then we started developing our own base stuff. Uh, we had at the time that I got in, I don't know, I think it was Extreme Skater.
Okay.
We had uh, oh wow, this is well, oh Fragger. We had
Okay.
we had
Yeah.
Fragger, and I ended up one of my first assignments was doing the last mission pack for Fragger. Then I
Okay.
then I started doing enemies for a game that we had was Monster Island. Yeah, so
Okay.
I
Yeah.
created all the secondary characters and animations for the characters. Then we
Yeah.
started doing Hambo, which
Oh yeah. I've seen bits and pieces of that advertised online. Yeah.
yeah, and then we started working on a 8 ball pool for mobile, and there was
Right.
a bit of a lengthy process because it involved a lot of
Yeah.
server stuff, multiplayer stuff. So it was a really big project, and it ended up paying off. So
Yeah.
that's good.
So is that was that the aim when you kind of first got into like doing art in general? Was that an end goal? Was working in games, maybe specifically mobile, or was it the game that was or the job that you felt was there at the time you could do or?
Well, I think it's a bit of a mix of everything because I remember being in 1992 or 93. I
Mhm.
was reading a magazine called Megascore, which,
Okay.
which was a Mega Drive based a Sega magazine,
Okay.
and I had a Mega Drive at the time, a Genesis for the Americans.
Me too. Me too. Yeah, I had the Genesis as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that thing to death. So
Yeah.
I, I started buying the magazines at the time, and I saw this story, an article they made about uh, Golden Axe 2. And they showed people doing in the studio all the concepts and drawings and everything else. I said, wait, these guys are getting paid to do this? And I was
Mhm.
like 12, and I said, shit, I want to do this. This is what
Yeah.
can I swear? I'm not
Oh
sure.
no, of course. Oh, fuck you.
Oh, okay, okay,
We also for the people who are fragile, we've got the censor button as well. So.
okay, good. Uh, so I said, oh, fuck it, I want to do this. And so my goal was when I was, ended up going to secondary school and start learning, getting a more dedicated training on arts.
Yeah.
So my goal was I want to do comics.
Oh, okay.
I
Like
want to,
everybody, like
yeah,
everybody
yeah,
really starts that. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It's what we do. So those are stepping points. So I want to do art. I want to do comics. I want to do illustration, and I want to figure out a way of doing video games.
Yeah.
So I ended up being kind of lucky because at the time there was this publisher in Portugal called
Mhm.
Queen of Comics, and they started doing things. And this was about 2005.
Okay.
I just graduated from college in 2004. I've been
Okay.
working in advertising since 1998, so before going into college.
Okay.
And I got to a point I said, I hate working in advertising.
Yeah.
I'm tired of doing, and specifically because the development cycles in Portugal are really, really, really small.
Yeah.
So because it's a small market, so you have to keep pushing stuff to become profitable. So
Yeah.
the stress levels go just through the roof. So at one point, I started doing comics and doing illustration for school books and different types of stuff.
Mhm.
And at the same time, there was this. Um, it was not a. It's not uprising, some sort of a revolution in technology in Portugal, and
Mhm.
small groups of people started developing their own studios. So this was before mobile.
Yeah.
We were doing things for Big Fish games and
Mhm.
all those types of publishers.
Yeah.
So I started in a studio called Game Invest, which
Okay.
is basically a mother company that had, that sponsored smaller studios to basically three people studios or one man studios
Mhm.
to with resources and projects so they can start working. So I started working on games and animation there with I started doing concept art, even voice acting for an animated series that we had at the time,
Okay.
and things just started growing up. At
Mhm.
one point, after 3 years, I decided, okay, I need to try something different,
Mhm.
and so I spent a while as a freelancer doing artwork for indie studios, and
Yeah.
then another studio opened up called Biodroid. So I spent another 3 years there, and there was when I started doing. We did browser-based games like sandbox games where you have to go and explore, but mostly they were advert games. So
Yeah.
it was based for we had for a big Portuguese bank called Besh. Um,
Mhm.
so they were investing a lot in ecology and sustainability. So we made a game that you have to go through a natural park,
Mhm.
different types of animals. We had a screen or some sort of tablet, a futuristic tablet like a tricorder, where you had to register all the species and of plants and animals.
Mhm.
Uh, so I did a lot of stuff there, but also some mobile gaming. The first game I worked was Billabong Surf Trip,
Okay.
and at one point, I heard that Miniclip was funding opening a studio here in Portugal. I said, well, okay, the
Okay.
mobile studio. And my thought process was my goal was not to go to work on mobile, but I think my thought process was, okay, so it's a big company, so it's not a Portuguese company, so they have studios in several parts of the world, so I can learn a lot from that, from a business standpoint. And at the same time, I believe that Portugal needed something of that dimension in here in Portugal. So for the country, to to help the industry bloom, and that's what I ended up doing. I joined the company. It was really funny because I went there to the interview with a friend of mine. So I stayed on the lobby playing a game first, so I could relax before going to talk with the CEO and everything else. And so my friend went first, and after an hour or so, he came out, and the front desk person signaled me to go in. And I said, as soon as I put my foot inside the office, I just heard like 20 people just screaming my name. And so the funniest part was, I looked around, and almost every single person in that room, I have worked with them in the past. So I basically got the job just as soon as I got through the door. And so I stayed there for 7 years. I have a lot of my own DNA on there, on the older product, and I think it was a really good project for me because I learned a lot and allowed me to do a lot of different things. But at one point, and I this came to terms with last year, I needed something different. I need something. I don't say like working on AAA or something, because I think I'm more adequate for a mid-level studio, because the thing is, uh,
I mean, you say that, but then the stuff you have been putting out recently, I feel, has definitely been a level up from the previous stuff I think you've been doing. Like, I think even just the draw this in your own style stuff that you were posting, like that was again a level up. I feel from where you were even like a year ago.
okay,
Because looking back on your stuff, you can see the times and dates when you've been posting stuff, and yeah, like I even thought that, like when you done I'm trying to remember the one, it was from the art by it was like the pink haired monster thing that you drew, um and with the purple skin, you know the one I'm talking about,
yeah,
with
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
okay,
um
the right in your
and
style thing.
yeah, like basically, and when I looked at the one previous, it's no insult to the other artists, but I felt like that was like a before and after, almost like the level up postings where like this is where I was last year, this is where I am now,
Yeah.
um, because the one you drew was like, it was so good.
Well, thank you. I'll buy you a beer next year, Juve. Or
you,
probably,
you
I'll
you owe me
borrow.
one anyway, man. I got you on the podcast. That was the deal.
Okay, fine. I can live
Yeah.
with that.
No, man. I feel that people who limit themselves by saying like, "Oh, I could only ever do mobile. I could only ever," I would say your stuff is as good as anybody's stuff to work with in AAA. I mean, I think with AAA, when you talk about like a level of quality, I've seen some guys who work in AAA, and it's not a badness. Like it's just that literally, I've seen some guys' portfolios who work on these massive franchises, and yeah, their stuff isn't. It's not at like a level that's unachievable. I've never looked at somebody's stuff and said like, "Oh, you could never get that good." So, people can always get better. I think it is just literally that sometimes you'll find the people I've met in AAA are the people who will constantly push themselves to get better, and it's always a constant evolution of their style and their technique and implementing new tools, and um but yeah, I would never say that there's a thing or a plateau or a level that you can never achieve. Everybody's capable of it.
Yeah, I know, but I have there's a logic behind it. So it's not that I can't achieve it.
Uh-huh.
It's because we Portuguese people have a problem,
Okay.
and I'll explain it.
Okay.
There's a logic behind it, and it's not
Okay, cool.
about self-esteem. The thing is, from a really young age, we're practically ingrained culturally to be able to do everything. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
so I remember, for example, when I started doing comics, and I was talking about with the publisher, and they said, So we're gonna need the pencils for this week because we have to send it for inking the other week, and the other week we can do colors. And I said, "Why I can do inks?" I said,
Yeah.
"Yeah, you can do inks? Yeah, I can do inks. I can do colors too." That's what you do everything? Yeah. Uh, I just don't do text because I hate working with text. So, but so when I say I'm thinking about a middle level studio, it's because I have a distinct idea. And for example, this happened with mini clippers. It became bigger. Uh, you become very compartmentalized, so you do one specific thing. And I like to do different types of things. I can do, concept art today. I can do user interface another day. I can do. Actually, I want to start doing 3D now also, and I also want to do pretty much everything. You know, I had this really interesting conversation with Supercell last Jeju, and the guy. It was a really cool interview because the guy really enjoyed my art, but at the same time, he told me I'm having a really hard time in trying to figure out where I can place you within the structure of the company because you have all different types of skills, and I couldn't choose one specifically because I like diversity. So it's mostly my end goal. Um, so I can do that on a middle level studio, but not in a. I don't think I can do it in a AAA studio.
But then I feel that sometimes that's a thing. Could you even talk about like specialization versus generalization? Like, how do you feel that is a thing nowadays with artists?
Okay. So my idea is if you're starting up, um, the more general you are, up to a point, obviously, it's good because and because for the most part, when you're starting up, you don't exactly jump to a huge tier studio on average, but it helps you to fill in gaps where people need you to fill gaps. So it's easier to build up a solid ground for your career development. But at one point, I think you do have to specialize on something, which is true. So I I want to for example, I just told you that I want to learn 3D. Okay, but I want to learn 3D because I think nowadays it's a tool that's or depending on the program, but it's a type of tool that has been more and more streamlined through the years. So the learning curve is not that complex. So it's something you can use as part of your process, even though, or in my case, I'm more specialized in 2D art or in concept art. But I can use it to, and it's not unheard of. You have lots of artists that they build basic 3D structures that can do paint overs to help to advance on concept art or whatever. But I believe that specialization is something that's really, really required in studios that have a larger format because it's a pipeline. It's so you're specializing in doing this, so you're going to focus on this until because the next person is going to be specialized in other stuff. So it creates I believe it creates a lot less back and forth, iterating stuff, because everything is really, really well segmented. So personally, I think that to be the more polyvalent, the more diverse you are, the more you can grow as an artist. And it's also not uncommon to have artists that they already have their like the top of their careers and they're doing their thing. They have their own niche, but at the same time, on their free time, they're exploring other technologies, other skill sets, and not necessarily because they want to use it for a cash revenue stream or something, but because they want to keep growing. And I think it's something innate. I've never seen an artist that, in one way or another, is not trying to evolve. Okay, it's really, it's ingrained to us, because we're all about the exploration and experimentation and the curiosity. I say, "Ooh, I didn't know you could do that," and you're just trying to figure out how to get there. Like you said, you never seen a piece of art and you look at it and say, "Oh, I can't do that." You said, "I can get there. I need to figure out why and how." Um, but yes, personally, my advice, and I also teach for I'm not sure if you're aware of this. I just finished lecturing a class, and one of the things I did for this semester was to specifically tell to my students that the more you know, the best off you're going to be, because you're going to be more flexible to adjust to any type of project requests. Another example: if you're going to be, for example, they're going for a vacancy for a concept artist, right? They just speak about your 2D skills, your illustration skills, your rendering skills, your know-how about light, values, perspective, depth, whatever. But at the one point, you're in the interview, and the hiring manager is looking at your CV and said, "Oh, wait, you know 3D, or you have some experience in it?" "Yeah, I did some. I've been playing around a bit. I worked a lot with people that are doing modeling, character modeling, and creating levels for games and everything else." So, and at that point, the person knows that, "Oh, wait, so you know about this type of pipeline?" "Yeah, I'm aware of the pipeline." So this becomes a plus, because you know how to prevent problems before they happen, because you know how things are done. Um, I remember when I was doing when I started off working with the group of animators. I also have the background from the performing arts, because my dad is a director of one of the biggest theaters in Portugal, and I was really young, so I used to go backstage and see the actors rehearsing and doing voice exercises and doing posturing, to figure out how they move around, how they present themselves to the audience. And at the same time, I used to see the seamstresses working on the costumes for the plays and everything else. So that really got me ingrained. So I pulled back from all this experience when I started working with the animators, and I did all the same exercises that those actors did when I was trying to discuss the scenes, how were they presenting themselves, and at one point I was uh, side by side with the animators. Exactly, they just told me, "Oh, I need to do a keyframe for this shot," and I said that I get exactly what they needed. Uh, because you know I had the experience. That's it. So it's never a problem to know more. Never a problem.
And I think I was definitely the same when I approached my teaching point as well. And I say teaching, what could I teach? But then I had been through the 4 years. I had been lucky enough that I'd got the position and access to do the internship. So, and I'd been going to industry events. I'd been talking with industry pros for 3 years. So I had more than your average student. So the things I kind of bled back was the very same things about how you have almost a tool belt on you at all times, and the more tools you can add to that belt, then of course the greater the chance of someone wanting to take you into battle or wanting to take you into a studio to do a project, because like you said, 3D, because there's purists, right? And
Yeah.
I remember there was a talk I actually watched off Gumroad. I think about it way back when I first was getting into university, and it was Shadi Safari's the law of increasing awesomeness, I think he called it.
Hmm.
And it's how he talks about you can use your purest tools, and you can study and do environments by hand and use pencil and marker and
Yeah.
painting. But then the more tools you assert to that, which is like photo bashing, which is 3D, which is whatever, world machine, all this kind of stuff, you then ascend at a quicker rate than most people would typically. And know that you shouldn't draw or shouldn't learn to draw. Like, drawing is always, I believe, well, now especially, and it's something I've avoided, but it's the foundation that everything else we build around. So if you can draw or you can draft in a way that you can, convey an idea, that in itself is a powerful tool
Yeah,
and something you can build on.
yeah, exactly. For example, I had the interview with the Lego guys last year at TA2. So one of the things that they really enjoyed on watching my portfolio was how I could get to do different types of styles and drawing techniques really quickly on my sketchbook. I would draft something really quickly, and I would always be carrying my sketchbook around. I actually got to a point where this is weird, but I have always with me 2 or 3 sketchbooks. Uh, I have 2 Android tablets, and one is mostly a backup, so I can use a digital sketchbook. I'm actually sketching while I'm talking with you
Oh,
on
cool.
my sketchbook.
Nice.
Uh, so and the best thing about it is, and it's really funny because my degree was on graphic design,
Okay.
and drawing was not encouraged. It was
Oh.
definitely not encouraged.
Wow.
I had me and a couple of other classmates from different how do you call it? It's not well, they were not from the same class, but the same year,
Okay.
and we were like the outcasts because we liked comics and we liked to draw stuff, and it was interesting. And one of them is working, I think, Ninja Theory. No, he
All
used to
right.
work.
Okay.
Okay, well, he also went to into the games thing. I went to also to games and animation,
Right.
but most of the others are not professional designers at the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
But it was something that was for me was really confusing because drawing is like the basic for everything. If you want to learn how to visualize something, if you want to understand um, something in 3 dimensions, it's good. The drawing is good because it's exploratory. You can do it really quickly without without major fuss.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, and one of the things, and taking back, as a segue for this topic, when we talked about the 3D tools being more streamlined
Mhm.
nowadays, I remember when my first year at THU,
Mhm.
I don't remember who the talk was,
Yeah.
uh, but they mentioned that at the time 3D artists were mostly just technical guys. They
Yeah.
had they didn't work on the creative tools.
Mhm.
So a few companies were trying to circumvent that, taking them to drawing classes so they can think more as artists and less as the guy that's building boxes and
Yeah.
doing, making sure the meshes are right and just the articulations are right. So and this, like, it helped me a lot, and I'm pretty sure that it gave me a pretty heads up uh, on my creative process and
Yeah.
career, because one of the things I did, I was 17 or 18, I think, when
Mhm.
I went for my first job at an advertising company. I took my sketch portfolio, and funny enough, my first professional job was a storyboard for a porn advert. So
Yeah.
it was pretty. It was pretty cringy, and but it was also a very good professional experience.
Okay.
Uh, I would not do it again, but but it was fun because because in the ranks of the company, and it was considered one of the best companies in Portugal.
Oh, okay.
I think it still is, and they won prizes not just in Portugal but outside of the country.
But that's
Uh,
interesting though as well because a lot of I mean, I'm reading this article where a lot of Japanese anime artists, before they worked in big time anime shows, they would actually cut their teeth on hentai, so stuff from
yeah,
Japanese porn. So,
yeah,
like, yeah, art is art, and industry is industry. So, yeah, it doesn't really matter where it comes from.
yeah. It's not it. Well, we all have those taboo issues where, oh, you shouldn't be working on that, and it's actually true that many artists have a pseudonym or
Yeah,
an alternate identity for when they're doing safe work and doing not so safe work.
Oh man, the hardcover stuff that Spiridon's
Yeah,
been basically pushing is like incredible. I'm so glad that he got that book out because oh my god.
I know, and I was not expecting it to grow as much as it did, but I'm really happy it did because it points out that there's something that needs to be worked on, and there's actually a will to see it happen. It's really for example, I heard at one point they were trying to censor Michelangelo's David statue because it had a penis, and it's not supposed to be showing a penis, and it's like, oh my god, we just regressed hundreds of years in history.
Yeah, it's like the Dark Ages all over again. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I was actually reading, saw an article as we're that considered that we're practically going into a modern medieval time
oh god.
because, well, and if you see the human history from a perspective, from a top down perspective, you
Yeah,
see everything comes in cycles.
yeah, of course.
Uh,
Like
so
there's war, there's government, then there's plague, and yeah, there's always like these parts of the experience where something major happens, something major changes. So yeah, you're right. Like, it goes in cycles.
yeah, so I can understand that it's happening. It's like growing pains.
Yeah,
You have a child, and the child starts to learn to move around in their environment and to interact with the things in their environment, and then they start to develop other skills, that when you're mastered a bit, how to walk and to touch and to grab and to throw and whatnot, then you start to working on the other aspects that are your inner aspects, your personality,
yeah,
your soft skills and everything else. And then you get to a point, a third stage, where you understand you have no limits, you can do everything. Then you go berserk because I can do this, I can do that, oh my god, the world's my oyster. And then you get to a point, I said, ah shit, I overdid it. Then you start to scale down and say, okay, let's streamline this a bit
mhm,
so I can see where I can better focus on whatever I can do best. Then that's where you reach maturity. So uh, if you consider humanity not just as a group of organisms, but like a massive superorganism, we're practically in our teens now. So we're reaching that point where we can do everything.
yeah,
But the understanding of knowledge is not that linear. So the thing is, there's a problem because there's and this is my disclaimer. This is a personal perspective. Okay,
yeah.
um, you're not endorsing it in any way, so you're safe.
No, no, no.
Uh,
It's fine. To see whatever you want, man. I don't give a shit.
okay, it's fine. But I think that um, we're living on the dark side of democracy right now.
Oh,
What I mean is, you have it's democracy is the right to have your own perspective, your own free will,
yeah,
your
yeah,
own freedoms. Exactly.
of
Okay.
course. Yeah,
But the thing is, most people don't understand that, and this is a problem also due to the lack of proper investment in education.
yeah,
So they don't understand that your freedom ends when the other person starts.
yeah,
Okay. And there's and they have also have this misinterpretation that, well, my perspective is valid as a citizen, right?
yeah,
So it means that my lack of culture is as valid as your head full of knowledge, if not
okay,
more.
yeah,
So it's not a problem of ill will. It's a problem of lack of interpretation and contextualization.
yeah,
So, for example, I remember that in 1998 or something,
mhm,
NASA was saying, "Yay, we got probes on Mars. We're taking all these amazing pictures and all this stuff."
yeah,
Fast forward 20 years, and the scientists are saying, for the nth time, the Earth is round. Okay, so and with the what happens is with the boom of the the communication era, where we have like I'm having this stream talk with you.
of
You're
course.
you're you're in Scotland.
Scotland, yeah, yeah,
You're in Scotland. I'm in Portugal, and we're talking live. Okay, just and the things started moving so fast that the society didn't have time to coalesce into it. So
yeah,
because I remember talking about of an artist's perspective.
yeah,
When I was younger, if I wanted to get comics or some sort of art related book, I had to go to a library. I had to go to um, a bookshop, something, a magazine shop. I remember when we started having internet, it was around 97 also. We started having the 50, the 60, 56K modems.
yeah,
And I started, it was not as polished as it is today. But I remember going to sites and seeing pictures of all these amazing artists I've never heard before. Okay. And I said, fuck, if I had access and we start, and nowadays we have YouTube with tutorials and everything else.
of
So
course,
if I was starting to think, dude, if I had all this knowledge available to me when I was I don't know 14 or 15, when I had all this youthful energy to go and learn and do stuff, and you spend nights without sleeping just working on stuff,
yeah,
which I used to do with more traditional materials and with all the few art books I could get my hands on because somebody had a cousin in Switzerland or in the USA that would send them stuff.
yeah,
And if I had all this knowledge, because I had what would be called the proper mindset to interpret them, because I
yeah,
was focused. I was focused in a specific goal, and I
mhm,
understand what I could take from every single piece of information, where I can polish it and integrate it in my own work.
yeah,
So what happens today is we have all this access, but people aren't trained into wait, how I can integrate this in my own working structure. So the class I was lecturing and finished this semester
mhm,
was research techniques, which is basically I was teaching them how to uh, give proper solid grounds in how to prepare a project, how to make your best art decisions, or
right,
to even understand the market,
yeah, of course,
and and before that, I used to do, because I was part of the Mini Clip Ambassadors project, where we were going to universities and teach. You give lectures and seminars. I used to do a lot of stuff on visual narrative and conceptualization.
right, okay,
Uh, and I talked about how to cross reference information, and we just analyzed movies or specific scenes of movies for a few hours, and it was a really dynamic process, because I'd question them, they question me back, and we go back and forth until we came up with the answers.
yeah,
And I noticed that they're not really used to cross referencing information, and it scares me a lot,
yeah,
because you never had all this amount of knowledge, but you have very little preparation on how to deal with it.
yeah.
So
I mean, there's 100 things to kind of pick apart there and talk about, but I mean, I would say definitely I am the same where it's almost been like an overwhelming nightmare because when I first started, I was the same. I was like, cool, I really love drawing, I really love characters, I would love to be able to do something with that. And then all of a sudden, I was like, oh, cool, comics is a thing because um, comics was a kind of what's the word I'm trying to say? Comics was a thing. It was very familiar to everybody. It
yeah.
was very familiar that people understood that if you drawn for a career, the only one that really is readily available is comic books.
Hmm.
And then, of course, like you said, you were reading these magazines where it was like, oh my god, we can now make art for video games, for movies. This is a thing. This is something that we can do. So then, when the boom hit, and I'm talking like I left my job in 2011, more
Hmm.
or less 2012. And then I was kind of like, well, what next? Well, I don't know much about what I should be doing. So how about I go and, look into doing um, uh, university. I can do art at university or some kind of course in game design, and that would then cover what I want to do. But then I've done, my 4 years, my 5 years in education, and came out of it, and I was like, fuck, I could have sat in an online course for 20 hours and learned the same stuff.
Yeah.
So it's because there's so much information now, and there's almost like a boom of art technology. Yeah. No one was a thing for years. Then all of a sudden, Learn Squid was there. Then there was CubeBrush. Then there was something else and something else and then YouTube exploded with all these. I mean, I remember listening to Modern Day James not too long ago talking to Serco, or Sikra. Sikra is one of the guys on YouTube, and he was like, "I have no formal training, and there's so much stuff online. Like, you could teach yourself anything now, including art, and you don't have to go to any formal training or But then, as much as I agree with that, which is totally, I feel is totally true and valid, you could actually, he says like, Mark, is it no Marco Bucci, but the I'm trying to mean the name of the artist I'm trying to talk about. It's Marco or something, isn't it? The painter. No, it's Marco Bucci, Marco Bucci. Am I saying that right? MARCO BUCCI. I'm sure he is.
Bucci.
Yeah,
Bucci.
yeah.
Bucci.
Like Secret was saying that Marco's putting stuff out that like people would pay for and you can get for free on YouTube. Yeah. So he's like, that's totally valid and I totally agree with him. But at the same time, trying to discern what you want to do with that information and how to take it in, because we get to a point I'd be like, oh, I could do comics, but now I can do concept. Wait, now I can also do 3D, or I could do VFX, or I could do editing, or for me, it's been difficult to actually nail down what I want to do, and it's took me to like this point, because even in November I was like, okay, I'm going to do some 3D stuff, but now I'm leaving for Japan. I'm now like, I want to get back to my fundamentals. I want to get back to drawing. I want to be doing concepts, specifically probably characters, focusing on that, and then maybe even eventually in years to come, possibly even do 3D characters or collectibles. Because I think it's something that I learned too late. But like, even if you start your career in one aspect of the industry, you can always shift to doing something else.
Yeah.
So yeah,
all the knowledge you have is transversal. Yeah. It's all just a matter of tools that you're going to use next. And the thing is, if you go to many of the great names in creative history, most of them are just late bloomers. The guys that ended up just making it when they were 40s. In some cases even their 50s or 60s, because at one point, for some reason, the circumstances are right, and then the knowledge you have meets the circumstance it needs, and it just blooms out. So you can't really plot a process. For example, me, I like we discussed, I decided to take a break of a year or so just to mostly improve my skills. But what I'm figuring out now is not necessarily on improving skills. I'm finally putting them to paper because I ended up getting those skills because of all the people I've interacted with, all the tutorials I've watched, everything else. It was working on the subconscious part. So you're just crystallizing it and allowing yourself to figure out, oh, I know how to do this. Okay. So it's, and it's not, I actually had a specific plan, but then I learned that sometimes you just need to go with the flow and not worry about planning too much. You have to, create your constraints, because you can't go overboard because of either money or because of time, because you have an end goal you want to reach. For example, for me, it's to get ready to the next THU, for example. But at the same time, I want to have fun in my process. I want to enjoy what I'm doing. So maybe the original plan got sidetracked because I've recovered something that I was not able to do for a long time, which was to really work on my things. And so I'm just going. I'm doing, for example, I did that Viking Jedi thing that I'm working on, and I started doing that, and I ended up with that result, which I'm actually polishing and giving a proper paint job on it. And then I started looking and I said, oh, I can use this to do something else. And I'm gonna later show it to you. It's when I get it done. But so I just allow it to, get its own momentum and get the shape it needs and get the structure it needs. So this is something I needed to do. This is not how I was going to do it initially, but I think it came out best for doing it this way instead of doing the other way I was thinking about. So I think you have to go and be agile with yourself for most of the
Yeah,
thing.
you can't be so precious with a lot of your artwork, because people will get so finicky about line work or color or
Yeah.
composition, and
Yeah.
you just have to really throw a lot of that out the window and say, "Ah, fuck it." I've done this bit, it didn't turn out the way, or there's something I could improve. Great, let's go to the next one and let's improve and do something different. Because I mean, there was even the point, when I was early starting on this, was early, and I was almost afraid to like touch like I'd get a brand new sketchbook and I'd be like, oh, this is great, and I just would not touch it because I was so afraid of
That first page.
ruining the pages. Oh my god! But then one
Yeah.
of my friends done something ages ago in class, and it was hilarious. Where I was like, oh, look at this new sketchbook, and it's lovely and pristine white paper, and I didn't want to draw on it. And then I think it had been like a week or something. I still hadn't drew anything in it, and he was like, oh, dude, like, give me the sketchbook and I'll draw something. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, because I knew he could draw, so I was like, okay. So he just got the first two pages, and he was using a Sharpie straight away, like a big kind of
Yeah.
thick Sharpie. And I was like, I wonder what he's going to draw. Maybe something inky. And he just basically like drew all these massive fucking squiggly lines across the first two pages. And I was like, no! And he's like, see, it's ruined now, so you'd have to give a shit. Just draw something in it. I was like, oh. But like, he was right. Like, I was so
Yeah.
precious about my sketchbook. So
Yeah. That's actually a rule I apply to my own things now, which is the basically first few pages are just scribbles. That's it. I don't even care anymore. I'm getting old. I don't care. I just want
yeah,
to get one, you know?
I'm the same because I left my job at 28, and like that's me 33 now, so it's been a solid 5 years. And I think once you pass 30, especially, it's just like, ah, fuck this, man. Like, people didn't accept me for who I am, then fuck them. But yeah, it's the same with sketchbooks. It's like it should be a tool for learning. It's no there to be. It's not your portfolio, right? It's not something you're going to hand to an art director and say, "This is my work." That's the stuff you put in ArtStation. That's the stuff you gather up. But then,
However,
uh,
However, I recommend for you guys, especially if you're going to interviews, and to have your sketchbook on you. And this,
one of maybe your prettier sketchbooks though.
yeah, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, the nicest one, okay.
yeah.
The one does not have spaghetti falling off of it.
Of course, yeah.
But the thing is, I've noticed it, and if people are actually excited about your work,
Yeah.
and if you said, well, if do you guys like sketch? They said, well, you have your sketchbook there? See, yeah, please let me see it. And then I ended up having, interviews that were supposed to last only like 20 minutes to go
Right.
for an hour and a half because
Wow.
I pulled up the sketchbook and people were just talking about, oh, this is even better because this is shows the processes and how your screwed up mind works and everything else. And so the chat continues and it builds up. So the sketchbook is also a good thing to always carry you around. So
I mean, it also depends on what job you're going for, right? Because if
oh
you
yeah,
were
yeah,
going for even like a storyboard artist or some previs, viz dev stuff, your sketchbook might even be more important than the finished pieces you produce.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
definitely
yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's 100 different ways to
to
skin a
go
cat.
about
But
it. Yeah,
yeah, but there's all these different avenues, and of course, and yeah, I think just always try and put your best foot forward, but don't be afraid to fail and grow and
yeah,
seek
yeah,
that next challenge and push yourself. And like with Felipe, like yourself, you could have easily stayed with Miniclip probably till you didn't want to draw anymore, which would have been maybe when you died. But yeah, you were like, no, I want to be uncomfortable, and it was like Jamaro Kindred, right, from Blizzard.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
Jamaro is like a prime example. Like he basically invented a website called I Want to Work for Blizzard.com, and he got a job from that by posting work on it and sending it to Blizzard. And then after being there for I think only 4 years, maybe, he basically after the Barcelona gig, like the Non-Stop festival, he put his resignation in and he left Blizzard because he was like, I'm getting too comfortable again. And I was like, holy shit. So yeah, it's definitely something. I think somebody said years ago, if you're the best person in the room, it's time to leave. So
yeah, yeah. And here's the thing. Uh, I forgot to mention this because and there was this. I'm not sure if it was a problem out of culture or if it was a problem about the society at that point in time.
right, yeah,
But when I was younger, I had far too much people telling me what I could not do
yeah,
than what I could possibly do. So I found myself at one point, my driving, my driving, my personal motivation was to prove everybody else wrong.
okay,
And so I started to do I developed that mindset. I was like, what can I do? Okay, so I remember, oh, comics in Portugal, you're never going to draw comics in Portugal. Video games, are you crazy? No Portuguese works in video games. And nowadays, well, things are a bit different,
Of course.
and it's good because if you don't know what's impossible,
Yeah.
you don't care about it. You just do it,
Yeah.
or find a way to do it, which is good.
Yeah.
So you just, it's your thing. The only really good advice I give to anyone is just do whatever makes you happy.
Yeah.
Because if you have to invest, well, it doesn't mean you won't have to do a specific task that you might consider maniacal for a while because it's a stepping stone.
Of
Or
course.
I need to get back, and I need to do a little bit of this just to get a bit of income.
Yeah. Of
Uh,
course.
and I told you, so I've worked a lot of different jobs at one point. So I did advertising, I did point of sale events, I did facial painting, I did voice acting, I served at counters in bars and coffee shops. I've done I've teach I've done reenactment. I've been into movies. Um, so and all these things at one point or another help because
Yeah.
it's another pool of experience, another pool of personal history that you can get when you're trying to create something. And it's something that when kids or students ask me, oh, what do I think is the most profitable way to go about my career, I said, well, the most profitable way to go about your career is the one that gives you more pleasure out of it,
Mm.
because if it won't be of any importance if you get like a high paying job and you just want to kill yourself every single day because you're doing something that it's just not you.
Yeah. Of
So
course.
where's that there was this that saying that um instability is hard, but stability is even harder. So it's something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, like I know what you're trying to say, because a lot of people will, like even students I know, they're like, oh yeah, games must pay this, and or we
Yeah.
get to get a job in this because then you get this money, and I've heard that, I've heard the guys at Blizzard earn, $100,000 a year, and but then like everybody I know who works at Blizzard, their first concern with the job wasn't how much they were going to earn. It was
Yeah.
working at Blizzard. You know what I mean? So like you
Yeah.
should you should be making art for the point you want to be an artist, not because you want to be rich. Because let me just flat out say this: you ain't going to be rich ever being an artist. Unless you own your own company, you sell off your own IP, something like that. You've been super
Yeah.
lucky, or you have like an amazing patron like Sakima-chan or something like that. Then
Yeah.
sure, like they're the rare exceptions, but no the rule. Because even like the wages that even the guys at Blizzard earn is also comparable to where they live. They live in California, so like living in California is fucking expensive. So
Yes.
yeah, of course that's why they have some really attractive wages. But then yeah, like the guys I know, like Jamaro and stuff, and John Polidori, who went to Riot eventually. These guys were in the industry because they loved the industry itself and making art and making games. It wasn't because they wanted to earn any great sums of money in the industry. So
Yeah.
yeah, if students want to get in it for money, I'm saying you're definitely getting in it. And I mean, I'm not going to tell a lie. When I first got in it, I was exactly the same. I was also attracted to the money. I was also attracted to the lifestyle. But then I remember back, like way back, one of my first things that made me want to even be a comic artist was watching videos of Jim Lee
Yeah.
sketching Batman and stuff at Comic Cons, and people standing in line waiting for him to sketch, and then he would shake their hand afterwards to get a little photo with him, and it was more like I loved the attention, no in
Yeah.
like a self-involved way, but I just wanted to feel the importance of people saying, "Oh, your art's awesome." Because I would have, the first kind of Comic Cons I went to when I'd done art for people, like I wasn't charging anything. I was just happy to sit there and like draw something for somebody and give it to them and be like, "Oh, this is really cool, thank you very much," because like I just wanted to feel like people appreciated what I was doing, my art forms. So yeah, like I mean, money came at one point, but initially it was literally just for the thrill of people enjoying my art.
I'm going to tell you a little secret.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but I have a problem with social anxiety.
Yeah.
So for example, the first time I went to THU, just the idea of being on a cove with, I don't know, hundreds of artists, and I had to talk with everybody else. It was fucking scary for me. Okay,
Yeah.
it's a problem.
Mhm.
So one of the reasons I started drawing was it ended up becoming a way for me to communicate with others. You know, to break that first layer of communication, of
Yeah.
interaction. Because what happened was, I'd sit down. I always enjoyed drawing, of course, but I would sit down and start drawing.
Mhm.
And then at one point, when I got to a new class or something,
Mhm.
and my classmates would start watching me draw,
Mhm.
and they start to talk with me. So it forced me to reply back.
Yeah.
Okay, so and I always enjoy telling stories because it's basically, well, like I told you, my dad's an actor and everything else, so
Mhm.
it's kind of in the family because my dad's an actor, but I have two uh, my two aunts and my uncle are all writers,
Mhm.
and so the storytelling is a very big thing in our family. So I was
Yeah.
the first to really go on a more visual aspect of it,
Okay.
but so I just wanted to communicate with people, to show them things and make them make something they could look and
Mhm.
see. Oh, this is something different, you know.
Yeah.
The- and it starts to pull on a dialogue. For
Mhm.
example, I told you about those 600 cues I made
Yeah.
for miniclip.
Yeah.
So one of the questions I had, even within the company, is, how the hell do you keep doing these things? They all come out so different from each
Mhm.
other. Well, I have a history for each one of them. I have a story. You know,
Okay.
I create a context. And part of my pleasure was to go to see the feedback from the users, and to see how they relate with the things, and if they were able to figure out the hints of everything I placed there, and it was so rewarding. You know, it's not, and it was not about the money. It was, like you said, it was seeing people actually enjoying what you do,
Yeah. Of
and that's
course.
the best part. For example, the even with all the bruises being like the yellow sentai last year, and all the tumblings and the screamings and whatever,
Yeah.
but seeing the people just crying out laughing in the stage when I was, from the audience, it was like the best thing ever.
Of course.
It,
Yeah.
that's what drives me,
Right.
to make things that people enjoy and
Yeah.
you can sink their teeth in. So that's my goal. So, and if for whatever reason it's not getting there anymore,
Mhm.
or I feel that it has to be done in a different way, so
Yeah.
I'm going to follow it, because I
Okay.
actually had a really pretty secure job where I used to work,
Mhm.
and the pay was not that bad, and
Mhm.
especially in considering Portuguese standards.
Yeah.
But I got to a point that I need to do something different.
Of
So
course. No, you need to be honest with yourself because
yeah,
yeah, like you said, you could be there, you could be comfortable, but then at the same time, you're wanting to grow, you're wanting to change your outcome, and think what's the next step, and then I think to get that perspective, you really need to step back from what you're doing,
yeah,
and then have a really good look inward. And it's one of the sayings we have across here is that you can't see the forest for the trees, and it's very
yeah,
true that unless you're standing at a good distance, you can't really see what the next step or where the path leads next. And yeah, I totally agree that sometimes you need to have that thing where you leave, and it can be scary. But then if you are good enough, which you are, of course,
sure,
um, you will find opportunities come. And then I say, you say, you've kind of left and stuff, but you are still working for Lego. So,
yeah.
um,
I'm actually doing a lot of stuff, not just for Lego. It's for a lot of different people. I've
yeah.
been doing I've been doing some. I can't tell it yet.
No, of course, yeah. The
Yeah,
NDA stuff is always a
yeah,
bummer, but yeah, yeah,
yeah. But I've been, and that gives me, once again, it's like I'm doing different things. I'm
yeah,
doing things that I was not expecting to do uh, at all. Um, with after, it's like when they say that the stars align. The
yeah,
same week it was like I didn't announce it to anybody that I was leaving the company,
yeah.
but suddenly a lot of things just started raining into my mailbox. So I started planning a lot of things for different months, but it gives me the chance of doing all those different things I want to do. So yeah, it's just, you got to go with your flow, man. You got to do what's best for you. And I was actually I shared the conversation the previous day. It was an Alan Watts conversation that life is not a journey. So basically, it was talking. It does not. It's not. It doesn't matter what's your end goal. It's what you do in the middle.
It's not the
So
destination; it's the journey. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. It's what you do, man. You're like, I've done so many different things in my life. Hopefully, I'm not going to die so soon. But if I can pretty much tell you that if for some reason something would happen, hopefully not, knock on wood. But if something happened and I was being my deathbed and thinking about it, and I said, well, I'm pretty sad because I won't see what's going to happen after this. But damn, it was worth it. Every single moment of it. It was worth it. Yeah.
No, it's cool, man. No, totally agree, 100%. I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's exactly the same way I feel. Is that life's fucking short. It's here for living, so you might as well fucking live it. So yeah, I agree, man. I agree. So thank you for coming on, Filipe.
My pleasure.
It's been awesome chatting about you. Thanks to everybody who's listened or who's tuned in. Again, if you're on YouTube or any other service, we're on multiple places, all the podcast services ever that will be here: Spotify, iTunes, Soundcloud, Acast, all that kind of stuff. We're also on YouTube, streaming some video as well if you want to see it in that way. Show some of Filipe's lovely artworks on there. I'll leave all his links below. If you want to leave any comments for Filipe down below, I'll make sure that he gets them and he can respond to them also on YouTube. And yeah, just heads up, guys, stay tuned and we'll have more shit coming in the future. Thanks again to Filipe, and I'll speak to you guys later. Bye.